After Dark on the Field of 68, powered by Bet Rivers. And joining me tonight, two of my favorite people in college basketball. We've got Sleepers Media's own Carter Elliott and Sports Illustrated's own Kevin Sweeney. Fellas, how we doing?
We good, man. I got to say, I've never gotten an official Sleepers invite to be on a Sleepers program. So fortunate that our friends Rob and Jeff made this happen.
I'm just honored to be here with the A crew, man. A couple legends below me right now. And for those wondering at home, no, I do not have the Darren Williams, Sean May filter on. I did just get a nice little cut, clean it up a little bit for the After Dark show, but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm sorry on behalf of all Field of 68 listeners that they put Carter and I together on one of these. And I'm even more sorry to Kevin Sweeney. He has to deal with this. But the good news, there's been a ton of great basketball today and some bad basketball, but we are coming to you live moments after a buzzer-beating three from Wake Forest, Isaiah Musius in the corner, wide open, cash, three-point win against Charlotte, got a little dicey down the stretch. But what better way to kick off a Friday night and a weekend than with a buzzer beater? It feels like March is already here, although we still got 3 more months of this. Did you guys watch any of that Wake game?
I watched a good like 3 minutes of it.
Yeah, I decided to kind of fade out ACC basketball outside of Duke and North Carolina, so I did not catch that, unfortunately. But maybe the ACC is back. Maybe I'm missing something.
Hey, the streets are saying the ACC could be back. A win over Charlotte, arguably the most marquee win for the conference this season. But let's move on. Let's move on to the headliner game of tonight, which was Villanova visiting Creighton. Creighton with a bit of a statement win, 79-59, although I would argue that score doesn't necessarily demonstrate how close of a game that was for the first 30 minutes at least. Creighton ran away with it down the stretch, though. Very impressive performance, a pretty balanced team effort from a very young Creighton team. Nova, everybody talks about their experience. Colin Gillespie, 16 points tonight, just 1 of 8 from 3, though. Carter, I feel obligated to kick it to you first. Everybody knows that you're not exactly Colin Gillespie's biggest fan, but you had to have been impressed with Creighton tonight, right?
Yeah, no, I was very impressed with Creighton. And, once again, in a big point guard matchup, it seems that, Mr. All-American is getting out first team by another point guard. But look, there's way deeper issues than, just Colin Gillespie. I mean, he had a tough shooting night, still got his points, but, it took 17, 18 shots to get those 16 points. But this Creighton team is really good. Love Nebhard, love Hawkins. I think he's in his 6th year of college basketball or something like that, but love him. I think this team really meshes well. And it's not necessarily a bad loss for Villanova. It's a tough Creighton team.
Yeah. I mean, I think Creighton is absolutely a basketball team that is still learning who they are, together, right? I mean, this is a group in a year where everybody's like, let's plop in a 5th year, let's prop in a transfer here, like old guys. This team plays 4 freshmen in key spots. And I felt like those freshmen got older this week. They learned how to win games, right? They played a tough game against Arizona State at home, a game that you really feel like you should win. If you're a team that wants to go to the NCAA tournament, you get Arizona State at home, you should win that game. And I just felt like for them to come out and have probably their best offensive performance of the season, for Nembhard to be really, really confident running the show. But, I also thought Alexander was terrific, and we'll hear from him in a little bit. I thought obviously Hawkins and Kalkbrenner up front were great, but they got some nice contributions from Kaluma defensively. I felt like, I just feel like this is a group right now. And Andronikashvili, I guess we're pronouncing that way. Let's hope I'm right on that one. He made some huge shots, including, I think, the shot that really sealed the game, right? He hit the 3. I think he made it a 14-point game with 3 or 4 minutes to go. Like that was the dagger. Like this team, got better before our eyes the last week, learned from a tough loss. And I think is really finding itself at the right time heading into conference play.
Yeah, I think that's what's impressive about it, though, Sweeney. Like, they had that tough game against Arizona State, and you expect an older team to kind of come back, refocus on the game. But when you have younger guys, a loss like Arizona State in a game you should win, like you mentioned, is something that could affect them, maybe carry over to the next game. They really did a good job of putting that behind them, playing who's in front of them. So it was an impressive win all around as a team.
Yeah, so I think one of the difficult things with youth in college basketball is inconsistency. Right? You can have some very high highs, but you can also have some very low lows. And Sweeney, you mentioned they're coming off a 1-point loss to Arizona State, an Arizona State team who has no business playing with Creighton when they're at their best, in my opinion. They've also lost to Iowa State. Now, at the time, I think that loss to Iowa State didn't look great. Now Iowa State's cooking. So I think you could argue that's not a bad loss at all. But to me, this Creighton team has a very high ceiling. I think they could factor into the Big East race, but they also have a pretty low floor. It wouldn't shock me if they lose to anybody any given night. Sweeney, what's your take on how they'll fare in Big East play? Because this conference is a lot stronger than people really thought heading into the season.
There have been a few teams that I've watched in the Big East where I say, I don't know how well they're going to play on the road, but they're going to be really tough at home. And I think the two teams that really stand out with that are Marquette and Creighton. Marquette is a similar spot to Creighton. They're playing a lot of younger guys. Marquette's in a first year of a new head coach. Obviously, McDermott's been at Creighton a long time, but I think especially when that crowd's rocking like it was today in Omaha, they're going to be very difficult to beat because you saw the confidence it built for their offense. I think this team will wind up finishing near the top half in the Big East. I think they'll be in that kind of 4 to 6 range. I'm pretty in. Maybe I just saw their best performance of the year tonight, and that's what it'll be. But I thought Nembhard was really solid. He's only going to get better. We saw him in high school really play extremely well, and early in his college career, he's certainly lived a life. I think the big key for them, and a guy who played really well today, was Kalkbrenner. He only had 8 points, but he really impacted the game at the rim. He blocked 5 shots, probably impacted 5 more, had 4 offensive rebounds that were critical. He is really coming into his own. He had 16 and 9 last time out against Arizona State. Before that, he had 14 points, 9 rebounds, including 6 offensive rebounds and 5 blocks against BYU. That was a huge win for Creighton. I think when you have that 1-5 duo of Nembhard and Kalkbrenner going, the wings will take care of themselves. And I think you saw tonight what happens when both those guys play very well.
See, I'm not like you, Sweeney. I'm not ready to put them. I think they're going to finish in the top of the Big East. But if I'm listing the teams that I think have a real shot to win the Big East, I don't think Creighton's there yet for me. I think they can compete for that top half, and we'll see how they play on the road, like you said. I feel like a lot of Big East teams just have great home court advantage. I think Xavier at the Cintas Center, there's some really good home court advantages in the Big East. I don't know if I'm ready to just yet put them in that category as a serious contender in the Big East, but they are trending that way, especially, that's a big win against Villanova. So yeah, definitely trending in that direction for me.
Carter, there's a player on Creighton that I know that you and I have been big fans of all season long and even heading into this season, and that's Ryan Nembhard. I think he's a guy that he ended up at Creighton, but as soon as he committed to Creighton, I was a little bit like, how did this kid end up at Creighton? Just off pedigree alone with the family. I'm a big fan of his offensive skill set. I think he's an incredibly smart player. He can get to his spots. I want to toss you a little bit of a one-liner question here. If I asked you, Ryan Nembhard is the blank best point guard in the Big East, what's your answer to that question?
Oh, he is I know I'm going to forget people. He's the 4th best point guard in the Big East.
Okay. I'm assuming you have to have Colin Gillespie ahead of him, right?
For now, I do.
For now. Okay.
For
good
now.
To know. Just had to run that by you. I wanted to get a little pulse check from you.
True.
Like I said at the beginning, though, the impressive takeaway that I have from this Creighton team is just balance. If you would have told me going into this game, they're going to win this by 20 points, I would have said, okay, O'Connell caught fire, or Nembhard had the game of his life, or Kalkbrenner was unstoppable. If you look at the box score of this game, everybody was good. I wouldn't necessarily argue anybody was great. Maybe Ryan Hawkins was great, 19 points, 11 rebounds, 3 for 6 from 3, took 14 shots. But to me, this is a team that can beat you a ton of different ways, which is going to bode really well for them in a conference that you're going to have to survive some nights where maybe your go-to guy doesn't have it. To me, Creighton's depth can get them over the hump. Impressive win. As far as I'm concerned, this is a win that sort of puts them on the map in a way that I didn't 100% expect. Our friends at Bet Rivers had the line pregame. I believe it was Villanova -6.5. And I stayed away from it personally, but if I had to pick one way or the other, I would have leaned Villanova. So I would consider this a surprising but great win from Creighton. And we actually had a chance right after this game wrapped to speak with Creighton guard Trey Alexander, a freshman. He came off the bench tonight, but he chipped in a ton of different ways. and we caught him right after the game ended, live from the arena. Let's go to that interview right now. We are pleased to be joined by Creighton guard Trey Alexander, coming off the huge win at home against Villanova. Trey, first of all, congrats. How's it feeling, man? It's got to be exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We couldn't wait to get in the Big East play. We're just ready to bounce back from a tough loss we took the other night. So I feel like we did that pretty well.
Yeah, you mentioned the tough loss. You know, it was a very tight game down the stretch, a game you guys probably felt like you should have won late and just couldn't find a way. What did you guys learn from that game that you applied to this one that was, close most of the way in the second half?
We learned that we couldn't be complacent at half. We had a 9-point lead. I think going into that game, we're 8-point lead. So we were kind of like, we can't let this happen again. We have to be a team that plays a full 40. And so, like, in the locker room, we were cheering each other on and telling each other, like, we can't let this happen again. We can't take another loss because we get too happy because we had a good first half. So we tried to have a better second half than we did the first, and I feel like that's what kind of got us over the hump tonight.
So I want to ask you from a spectator perspective. I'm watching this game at home, and I've watched enough Villanova games this year that I know even if they start out slow, it's like, oh, here they come. They hit a big three. They make a big extra pass, big shot. And it seemed like there were 4 or even 5 times in the second half where they cut it maybe to like a 1-2 possession game. But every single time you guys responded and opened it back up. It was extremely impressive from my perspective. How'd you guys navigate that through the game? And I got to assume your home court fans helped you through that as well.
Oh, yeah. The fan base here is 1 in a million. So you don't find anything like this anywhere else in the country. I feel like the thing that kind of brought us together was just us all, like, keeping a level head, not playing our game, but not letting them speed us up. Because we know when a couple guys make a couple shots that we have to lock back in. And I feel like we made the right matchups. We played disciplined defense every time that they made a couple shots. And then we came down on the other end and just played our brand of basketball, very unselfish, looking for each other, feeding it inside or really just getting to the rim, just really trying to make a lot of things happen when they went on those runs because we knew that because they were a good team, a really good team, that they were going to have a couple runs within the game. As long as we could withstand those runs, that we would be able to come out with the W.
Tell me about the relationship you have with this freshman class, one of the more talented freshman groups in the country. You guys are all on the floor quite a bit. Obviously, Ryan Nembhard and Kaluma start for you guys, but you and Rati played a ton off the bench. Tell me about the relationship you have with those guys.
We have a very good relationship. We live right next to each other. We're always together. Everything that we do is really together. We're kind of like one of the most close people on the team type of thing. And I feel like that's kind of what like helps us on the court. Like we know each other's game as well. And I feel like we kind of benefit off of that, having that off court friendship kind of helps us on the court as well.
Okay, but the real question for you, can you pronounce Roddy's last name?
I've tried to do it a couple times and I think I got it right. It's Andro Nikishvili. I think that's correct.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll let you run with that one. I'm not even going to attempt it. All right, I gotta end with this. Yeah. What's the game plan? Where are we headed in Omaha tonight? What's the spot?
I don't know. We got 3 days until the fall. So, and we lift tomorrow. So you really can't do all that you want to. So it might have to be just the dorms and chill and watch a movie or something tonight. It might be what it has to be.
Okay, what movie we watching? If we're in the dorm, what we watching?
Tomorrow we might have to go watch Spider-Man, but tonight we just might watch a little anime. You know, I'm a big anime guy, so.
Okay, love it. Well, congrats again, man. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck the rest of the season.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, so that was Trey Alexander. Again, a critical piece of a massive win for Creighton. But on the flip side of every great win is a big loss. And that's what we saw for Villanova tonight. A Villanova team who started the season, preseason top 10, has not exactly competed in some of their biggest games of the season. Colin Gillespie, preseason All-American in a lot of places. Carter, again, I'm obligated to throw it your way because I know you have thoughts and feelings about Sir Colin Gillespie and what he's looking like in the light right now.
No, I mean, I think the big speaking point with Villanova is coming into this year, a lot of what was predicated with their team is that Colin Gillespie can be that guy. Like, he can be the guy to fix issues like this when they're struggling during certain points of the game. If they're struggling scoring baskets, if they're struggling getting the offense running, you have an All-American, do everything type point guard that's able to pick up the slack in areas like that. Now, we have seen up to this point of the year that he is unfortunately not that guy. So they need to do some other things with this team, but everything is so predicated on what Gillespie does for this team that when you have to go to other guys, it doesn't really look as good. Like, as good and as proved as Dixon is, I still don't think he's a guy that should be taking 14 shots a game in a game that you want to win. He's not. I don't think he's that type of person. I think he's more of a role player. He's not a guy that should be getting the second most shots on this team. So there are some things that Villanova has to work out, and they're kind of going to have to shift their whole team dynamic, I feel like, because I don't know if at this point Con Gillespie's ready coming off that injury to be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I'll say is we've seen early in the year against UCLA and against Purdue that when Villanova shoots the ball at a high level and they have the personnel to do it, right? Gillespie, for, as deserving of some of the criticism he's going to get, is a big time shooter. Moore can really shoot it. Caleb Daniels can shoot it. Samuels can stretch it, right? They shot 11 of 24 from three against UCLA. They shot 13 of 34 from three against Purdue. And with 10 minutes to go in both those games, they were in position to win those ball games against elite teams, right? The last two games when they've really struggled, they're now a combined 10 for 50 from three, right? And the Jay Wright team is not going to say shooting the ball that poorly, but I think you see with this team right now, when they're not shooting the ball, the issues are so magnified because they don't have that guy who could just go get one, right? Gillespie, as I think good as he is at managing a game, of leading a team, he's not someone you can just roll the ball out to and say, hey, we're out, the offense is struggling, go get us one, right? And they've had that in the past with, a Jalen Brunson or a Phil Booth. Even they could go last year in the post to Robinson Earl. Sadiq Bey, I think, was close to that his sophomore year, right? And I think the guy they kind of hoped could be that guy this year was both Gillespie and Justin Moore, and neither of those guys have stepped up in the way that they've needed them to. And so you see really uncharacteristically disappointing offensive performances, right? There were a few moments here in the second half where, Creighton, I think especially around the 10-minute mark, Creighton had several empty possessions in a row when it was a 5-point game, 6-point game. And it just was like, when is Villanova going to hit this flurry of threes and win this game? When are they going to take this thing over? And they just never did. And again, part of that is they're in a cold spell shooting. Things will look a lot better for this Villanova team once they start bringing shots again. But the lack of a go-to scorer and some of the defensive struggles we've seen, because they're not an elite athletic team, they're not a team that has great size on the interior, those are starting to pop up as well. I think that combination is scary if you were thinking this team would be a top 10 caliber team.
Yeah, I feel like, to me, what's missing from this Villanova team is like the clear NBA wing that you've seen the last couple of years, like a Jeremiah Robinson Earl, a Sadiq Bey. Whereas this year, like, is that Brandon Slater? I don't really know. I don't think it's Justin Moore. Like, they have a lot of good college players to me. And you're right. When they're hitting threes, I think they're as tough to beat as anybody because they're so unselfish. They're very skilled. They're not going to shoot 4 from 20 from three, probably again. I mean, I know they just came off 2 straight bad games.
Yeah, they might.
Water finds
comes in threes.
Yeah, water finds its well, though. And to me, I actually want to give Gillespie a little bit of credit, even though I've been with you pretty vocally this year, Carter, in some of the biggest moments this season for Villanova. It seems like he has shied away from the moment. He finds himself uninvolved. In that Baylor game, he did a lot of standing around and watching. Tonight, I mean, he took a ton of shots. The shots didn't go in, but he took a ton of shots, which I think he does need to do in big games for this team. And he'll play better going forward. I do have a number that I pulled, though. I think, Carter, you'll probably appreciate this. In Colin Gillespie's career as a starter at Villanova, Villanova is 11-13 against ranked teams. Now, I would argue Villanova is almost always a top 10 team during that run. So more often than not, it's probably a pick 'em or they're the favorite in that type of situation. Not the most impressive number for a guy who has a reputation as a quote unquote winner and a very tough player, a game manager, all of that. I get it with him, but I don't know that that's necessarily what this Villanova team needs, as you guys mentioned. And I'm very curious to see how this plays out. I think Villanova will be fine. Like I said, the Big East is tough this year. I don't know that they're fine enough to be the favorite in this conference, at least not after what I saw tonight. Sweeney, do you have Villanova still as your favorite to win the Big East?
Begrudgingly, I think yes, right? Like I watched that game. I watched that game. I said, "Who is it?" And look, do I trust UConn, who's still not doesn't have Adama Sanogo, does not have Tyrese Martin yet? Like, are we trusting that team to win the league? Seton Hall, I know they already have a clerical loss on the books with the forfeit. I like Seton Hall a lot. Xavier, talent-wise, certainly is there, but do we trust a Travis Steele team in February? Right? This is still, a Villanova team that has proven they can play with elite competition. They beat Tennessee on a neutral court. They played with Purdue and UCLA and were the better team for 30 minutes of both of those games. I still think that they're slightly the favorite, but I think that the margin has gotten ultra thin between them, Xavier, UConn, and Seton Hall. And maybe Providence winds up in that conversation as well, right? I mean, they've found a way to win. They have a big game tomorrow at UConn. They win that game, the conversation about Providence as a Big East contender starts to come up.
Yeah, if there was a rule change where games were 30 minutes, then Villanova would be my favorite to win the Big East. But unfortunately, with 10 minutes left in the game, they usually say bye-bye and collapse. So I'm willing to throw this out there right now. I would not be surprised if Villanova finishes like fourth in the Big East, to be honest with you. They're playing in a league in the Big East where people lock down. These are teams that get after it defensively. They kind of play the same style of defense as far as getting after you as Baylor does. They don't do it as well as Baylor. They don't have the talent as Baylor maybe, but the mindset and the getting after you part is definitely something that is a constant theme through the Big East teams, I think. So there could be a lot of nights where they struggle offensively. And, also like you pointed out, Greg, if they're struggling from the outside, usually when you're struggling from the outside, you want to throw it inside or something, but they don't really have a guy they can throw it to inside. Jermaine Samuel's more of a pick and pop type big, and Dixon just is okay in the post, not a guy you throw into to go get a bucket. So, it might sound weird to say, it might sound a little out of control, but do not be surprised if Villanova finishes somewhere around fourth in the Big East. And I will be taking victory laps, just so you know.
But Carter, who would you pick to win the league right now over them? I guess is my question, right? Who is the team that you trust more than Villanova to go win this league?
I have my answer. If you want to think on it, I have my answer.
Is it bad if I want to say Xavier?
That's my team, man. I think Xavier's the best team in this conference right now. I don't know if they will be at the end of the season, but right now I think they're the toughest out in the Big East.
Yeah, true. And I know that Con Gillespie does not want to see Paul Scruggs. I'll tell you that right now. He does not want to see that man.
I think talent-wise, Xavier is there, right? Especially as Fremantle works his way back into full health. I mean, they have the point guard, they have the shooting, they have the athleticism, they have the excellent big in Fremantle. I mean, they have everything you need on paper to win. I just don't know that I trust them yet. And I'm not sure that, their resume so far is so overwhelming that I feel great about buying them, right? The Ohio State win is great. It's on their home court, right? It's very tough to win at Cintas. They beat Virginia Tech on a neutral. And Virginia Tech dominated St. Bonaventure today. But before that, Virginia Tech was looking pretty average against high major competition. I like this Xavier team, but they haven't looked overwhelming enough for me to trust them over a Villanova team, especially, I think, considering, Xavier's, struggles of late in February under Travis Steele and the trust that I have for Jay Wright. But I don't disagree talent-wise, right? If you line up the guys, I think Xavier should win on paper right now.
I got you right now, teams above Villanova. No order. Seton Hall, Xavier, UConn, and that puts Villanova right at 4.
I think they're on the same tier as UConn. I would agree right now. I'll take Xavier and Seton Hall ahead. I think those teams are a little tougher. I think when UConn's healthy, you could probably lump them in with the Seton Hall range for me. But right now, I mean, it sounds crazy though. As much as I want to talk myself out of Villanova, are we really going to do this with a Jay Wright team?
I am. I'd rather have RJ Cole than Con Gillespie right now.
I mean, I'm fine with that, but I don't know that I'd agree on the rest of the parts. You know what I mean? We'll see. You, Cart, you did say something that I thought was rather poignant for Carter Elliott here. You said the Villanova stops playing around the 10-minute mark of every game with 8 minutes and 48 seconds left in this game tonight. The score was 56-54 Creighton.
You know how Illinois hung that asterisk banner last year for the Big Ten championship. Hang the 30-minute Big East champion banner right now. The best 30-minute team
Big
in the
East,
country.
national champions.
National
they had
champs.
Purdue
Hang the
beat,
banner.
UCLA beat, both on a road neutral. I mean, come on now.
Hang the banner.
Hey, let's move on. We're going to play a game now. On the note of hang the banner, maybe some banners that we can talk about here, some teams that think they may hang a banner. I want to pose some questions to the two of you. We're going to play a game called Fact or Cap. And the first question we will begin with is about who should be the national title favorite. Should it be the Baylor Bears? I've made a ton of comments this week that I don't think there should be a number one team right now. I feel like this is just a death spell for whoever gets claimed that they're the best team in the country. It's gone poorly for Gonzaga. It's gone poorly for Duke. It's gone poorly for Purdue. And I think there's like 7 teams to me that are all in the same tier, deserving of potentially being a 1 seed in March. But I don't think there is an elite team right now. However, Baylor is going to be that next team up. They're going to get the number 1 praise. They're going to get all the, how did anyone forget about Baylor? They're still here. They're the returning champs. Would you take Baylor as the favorite to win the national title? Is that a fact or is that cap? Let's go to Carter first.
I'll say fact. I think that this team has all the makings to do exactly what they did last year. I don't think they are as talented as they were last year, but look, they got the same mentality. Drew's a great coach. And I think the thing with Baylor is I think they're starting to find some depth through these games. You have freshmen like Sochan coming off the bench. I think he's going to be a really good piece. Kendall Brown's one of my most favorite freshmen in the country. Akinjo's been playing extremely well. They got big men who are willing to die for the program and get gritty and get rebounds. I really love everything about this Baylor team. And I think that they're only going to continue to get better. And it's a rare situation also where you see like a number 1 team that has a chip on their shoulder because everybody forgot about them. They graduate all these NBA guys. They kind of take the turn. So like they're out here still trying to prove themselves, even though they're national champs, last year. So I do think they are, right now I consider them the favorite.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think Baylor is the favorite if you had to pick one right now. I agree wholeheartedly with you, Greg, that there are 7 teams that feel like they're a cut above the rest and not a ton of separation. But if you maybe pick one, give me the team with the elite coach and Scott Drew, who's been there, with players on this team like Meyer and Flagler, who've been there. And Sean Wachachua, obviously, as well. I think they're just a monster on defense right now. I mean, I watched, obviously, the Villanova game, and Villanova looked like, an A-10 team out there. They were this scrappy team that likes to shoot threes, and Baylor's just got at least 6'9", 6'10", hulking dudes running around, and just made them incredibly uncomfortable. Sohan and Brown, Sean Wachachua, obviously, Meyer 6'9". I mean, they're just loaded with length and athleticism. I think the one thing that holds me back from saying Baylor is a clear number 1, the clear best team in the country are the ball handlers, right? Like the thing that made Baylor so special last year was not only did you have the elite defense and the physicality, but they had guards that you trusted to go make plays late in games, right? Butler and Teague and Davion Mitchell, who's a top 15 pick, right? Like all those things just – like it was impossible. There was no hole, right? And I think with this group is Akinjo and LJ Cryer and Flagler. I mean, is that 3 guys, the guys you really trust to go make plays and win you a game against a Duke, against a Gonzaga in March? I don't know that I'm there yet, which is why I don't think they're an overwhelming favorite. But the way this team guards you, the way they're coached, and the way that I think their freshmen are going to continue to get better makes me think they are the slight favorite at this point.
Those guys are still good, though. It's like
they're good.
Yeah, it's like you have a fresh pair of Nike socks, right? Okay, that's what last year's team was, and then you go and buy like the Hanes pack from Target. Still, really great socks. Not as much hype as everybody else.
We're calling Hanes a great sock.
Yeah, come on. Listen,
how are we going from like Nike socks to Under Armour socks? Like a functional sock, but
Okay, first of all, we're not going to disrespect Hanes socks. Not when I'm on After Dark. Those are elite socks.
Listen, say what you want, but Hanes socks are not a national title winning sock. Okay. You can say that's a top 10 sock. I'll respect that. But what are we doing here? You cannot tell me it's a fact Baylor is the national title favorite and then compare them to Haynes Knox. That makes
If
no
I had to
sense.
pick right now, you made me pick at this moment. I didn't have a choice.
Well,
not to
yeah,
pick.
you didn't need to go with the Haynes metaphor, but here we are. Sweeney, how dare you disrespect Field of 68 preseason All-American James Akinjo? By the way, come on. Know what show you're on. Know the people behind the camera here. That's their guy. And I will fight for my guy's guy any day of the week, okay? But I will tell you the two of you are crazy because this is cap. Baylor is not the best team in the country. They are not the favorite to win the national title. They might look like it because they're undefeated right now, but you guys, the schedule that they've played is a big reason why they are sitting here undefeated right now. If you want to give them credit for dominating Villanova, go ahead. But we just spent 15 minutes talking about why we don't trust Villanova as an elite team. If you want to give them credit for pulling away from a Michigan State team that had hit a wall and was gassed after their first two games of grinded out big wins, a Michigan State team that's probably like a top 20, maybe 20 to 25 team in the country. Again, go ahead. I think that was a great matchup for Baylor. I haven't seen Baylor play an elite team this season. I think they deserve credit for being undefeated, but I'd be a little concerned if they weren't undefeated, to be quite frank with you. So I think it's cap. I think they're more like a top 5, top 6 team in the country, which I don't think you guys think is crazy, but I just think this is the curse of number 1 this season, and we'll see what happens a week from now. They've got Oregon tomorrow, which they better not lose that one. I don't think they will. But again, the number 1 curse is at play here. Let's move to factor cap number 2. Will Purdue make a Final Four? Or I guess it would be Purdue will make a Final Four. Sweeney, is that factor cap?
I'm going to say that's cap. Maybe I'm overreacting slightly to the last week or so of Boilermaker performances, but I think you saw the holes that this team has when they don't shoot the cover off the ball from deep, right? Like it was inevitable that, once Brandon Newman and Isaiah Thompson and, those guys stopped making every three they took, that this team would look a little bit weaker. And I think you saw, especially once Stefanovic was corralled in, and I talked to a Big Ten coach last weekend. He was like, the key to stopping Purdue is stopping Stefanovic. And, teams did that last week and teams, Rutgers beat them and NC State probably should have beaten them. I think you combine that with the fact that I don't really trust Jaden Ivey late in games, right? Like I think that he's a guy that's incredibly explosive. He's one of the most dynamic players in the country, but with a minute left, do you really want him under pressure from an opposing defense? Right now, I don't. So to me, I'll say they don't make the Final Four. Obviously, the bigs are great. Obviously, they have shooting. Obviously, they have a very good coach in Matt Painter. But to me, the question mark with Ivey running a team and the kind of shooting variance that drives their offense, to me, is enough to keep them out of that Final Four right now.
Cat. Honestly, the same things that Sweeney said. I think one of the most alarming things for me is that down the stretch, I'm one of Jaden Ivey's biggest fans. I think he's explosive. He has all types of tools, and I don't even think he's scratching the surface on how great he can really be. But the fact of the matter is, down the stretch, he doesn't have the ball in his hands. He's not the guy making the play. And when you are a guy who is a projected lottery pick, projected top 10, honestly, in a lot of mock drafts, it's kind of alarming that he's not the guy with the ball down the stretch. I'm not saying that he has to take the shots, but he doesn't even have the ball down the stretch. And I think that these past 2 games, whether they were wins or losses, whatever they were, it basically showed the holes that Purdue had that I didn't really see before. And maybe that was just because they were playing such great basketball, but I didn't really see the holes that I saw in these last 2 games. So, call it an overreaction, but I would have to call cap on that right now.
Okay, so I swear I don't want to be the contrarian here, and I was intending to go with cap, but hearing you guys just write this team off honestly offended me a little bit.
We didn't write them off. We just said they're not making a Final Four.
I know, but I think this team is a top 4 team in the country, and I also have this weird gut feeling that Matt Painter is the next in line of the Jay Wright, Tony Bennett coach that quote unquote just can't get over the hump in March. And then all of a sudden he does it once and now he's an elite coach. Like Matt Painter to me is an elite coach. He's had a ton of great teams for a decade plus. To me, this is his strongest team. And I don't think they win a national title, but I also have a hard time seeing like what path they would have to have that would make me feel bad about their chances at making a Final Four. Like, I think Purdue is the matchup problem that other teams are going to want to avoid. I don't think Purdue's necessarily going to run into a team that they can't hang with. Now, Carter, you nailed what I think is most concerning, that Jaden Ivey doesn't have the ball in his hands at the end of games. Now, Travion scores damn near every time he gets the ball in those spots, so I can't fault the strategy there. But if Jaden Ivey is the best guard in the country, which I really think he might be, I would just feel a lot more comfortable if it's his world when the game is on the line, when it matters. I think they may get there by the time March gets here. I think Painter deserves credit. I mean, I just tore into him when I found out that Travion was going to come off the bench this season. Thought it was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I think I called them bench your All-American you. But like I said, I got to stop doubting Matt Painter at this time. And I think this is his year. I can feel it. So I'm going fact. Purdue will make a Final Four. And honestly, now that I know my Wolverines are out of this, let's see the Big Ten win one. Okay. I would be okay if Purdue went all the way here. Moving on to
MIT.
Okay. Thank you for that. Moving on to number 3. Arizona will win the Pac-12. Fact or cap? Carter?
Cap. I do not think that Arizona will win the Pac-12. If I had to pick a Pac-12 team to win, I'm still rolling with either UCLA or sleeper pick. I mentioned it, I think, yesterday, USC. I still think USC is a factor. I think Mobley's playing really good basketball. It just seems like they just put it all together as a basketball team. Like, they might not have the most talented guys. I mean, Drew Peterson looks like Greg, but like, he's a hooper. That's what, he somehow gets it done. He's a hooper. So, I don't doubt Enfield either. He's one of my favorite coaches. I still think this USC team is really good, and I'm still going to ride with UCLA on this one. I think they're too talented. I think they have the pieces. I just think guys aren't playing up to their level right now. I think Miles Johnson is going to play a lot better going, the rest of the year. Hoping to see some more Peyton Watson minutes as well. I think this team's too talented. So if I had to go one way or the other right now, I would not say Arizona. I would either go UCLA or USC. So I'll say cap on that.
I'm in there with fact pretty strongly at this point. I'm a huge believer in this Arizona team. I saw them up close and personal Saturday against Illinois, and they went into a really difficult atmosphere. I think one of the best atmospheres of the season in college basketball. They let Frazier and Plummer hit 16 threes, a lot of them pretty tightly guarded, and they still won that game. I'm just a huge believer. I mean, the talent level is sky high, right? You have a clear first-round pick in Ben Mathurin. You have another guy who will be in the mix to be a first-round pick in Christian Koloko, who is the best rim protector in the country, without a doubt. I mean, he is.
Whoa, Marcus Bingham is still alive to this day, but go ahead.
He is a big-time rim protector. He shut down Kofi Coburn in this ball game. Kofi was 5 for 15 from the field. I don't remember the last time Kofi shot 5 for 15 in a game. Chabelis is an all Pac-12 caliber guy. And then Kriisa at the point guard spot made huge plays in that game down the stretch in his development, right? If they get really good point guard play out of Kirk Kriisa, this is an Arizona team that I think will be really dangerous, that will win this Pac-12, and I think be a very real contender to win the national title. I mean, I'm very in on this Arizona team. Tommy Lloyd is pushing all the right buttons right now. They've got an elite starting 5. They're athletic. They're really big, and they've got some really high-level skill guys as well. I really like this team.
Yeah, I'm going to call it cap just because I think I'm buying UCLA. This feels like it's been a little bit of a dip in the national perception of the Bruins. I went into the season thinking they were the most talented team in the country. I had them on par with Gonzaga as 1A and 1B. I don't think much has changed in my mind of that. Despite the blowout loss to Gonzaga, I still believe in this team. I still think their shot making, to me, is at a level that is special and separates them a bit. Now, Arizona is so much better than I thought they'd be. I think come March, I'm probably more afraid of Arizona than I am of UCLA, but there's something deep within me that just tells me UCLA should not be written off at this point. I don't think, at the very least, I don't think they're a tier below Arizona. I think, if anything, this is going to be a dogfight between the two of them all season long. And I'm going to stick with the Bruins, who I had as my number 1 team in the country preseason, and hope that doesn't bite me in the butt at the end of the year. Final question or statement for fact or cap here. The Memphis Tigers, coming off the surprising, maybe shocking blowout win of Alabama at home. Emoni Bates benched. It is what it is. Simple statement here. Memphis will make the NCAA tournament. Sweeney, is that fact or cap?
It's fact. They will get in. I just think, when you look at the resume, I don't think the losses that they've taken will look quite as bad as they felt at the time, right? I mean, I think Ole Miss at minimum, at worst, will be a Q2 game. Iowa State on a neutral, I think there's a good chance it's a Q1 game. So you really only have to look at the Murray State game as a clear bad one, and then Georgia, we'll see if that's Q2 or Q3. So I don't think the resume is as shot as people kind of think. And I think they really found something against Alabama. Obviously, the scoring output is what people will talk about. They get, put up 92 points. They shoot the ball extremely well, but there was an energy about them on the defensive end that was so critical and felt like the Memphis team we saw towards the end of the year last year that was so dangerous. They were playing a little bit smaller. They had multiple ball handlers. They were aggressive, but smart aggressive on defense. Were able to take the ball away from Alabama a little bit, get out and run, and then share the ball at a high level. I think there was a lot of me first basketball with this Memphis team the first 9 games of the season, and we saw a real turning point against Alabama. Now, I would feel more confident if I could answer this question in, I think, 13 hours when these teams face off when Memphis faces Tennessee in a huge rivalry game. Obviously, if they play well in that game, even in a loss, I would feel much better about this thing carrying over from the Alabama game. But I saw enough against Bama to feel hugely more confident in this Tigers team for the rest of the year.
Ooh, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna say cap, only because of this reason and this reason alone. I think that this is still a very volatile and toxic situation going on with this Memphis team. I think everything was going really well. I think they were playing extremely well. Great home environment, big game against Bama. They stepped up to the plate basically. But, some of those things continue from that Bama game. Players not getting shots, players not getting minutes. Yeah, winning is fun. Winning is a lot of fun. Winning isn't everything to everybody, though. There's still guys that want to get their shots, get theirs. This team is still, I think, a ticking time. It could go south really, really quick. Now, if they keep up the way they played against Bama, I think it's a no-brainer that they're a tournament team. But if I'm betting one way or the other, I think that this is a ticking time bomb and that things could go south extremely quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and say cap.
Yeah, that entire game felt like an out-of-body experience. Like, that was not the Memphis team that is Memphis. I still don't understand what happened. I'm personally angry at Nate Oates because I personally placed a little bit of a wager at Bet Rivers, our friends, that Alabama would cover 3.5 points. It didn't happen. I think they're going to make the tournament. I can't imagine they don't. And I want to give some credit to Emoni Bates because he was first team all teammate. I mean, this man was up on the bench. He was high-fiving everybody. He was high-fiving the water boy. Okay. He did his job, at least visibly did his job of appearing happy. I'm skeptical that's going to continue. I'm also skeptical that Penny's going to bench him going forward. I just don't think that works.
That's what I'm a little more skeptical about. I don't think that's going to continue.
It's not. And I still think, Memphis in that conference will win enough games. They'll get in. The Alabama win is huge for resume purposes. I have a hard time seeing them finish like 500 or worse in conference play, which is what I think they need to do to not make the tournament at this point. Now, I think they'll do nothing once they get there. I mean, this team to me is screaming 8-9 line and, lose round 1 before they even get to the game you want to see them play. But they'll make it. So I'm going with fact. Thank you, too, for engaging with me on a great game of Fact or Cap. We did one interview earlier this afternoon that we're going to jump to right now with Loyola Chicago head coach Drew Valentine. Drew and his team, his program, are going through a little bit of a COVID situation, as is a lot of teams in the country right now. So we got some good insight on that, but we will miss seeing the Ramblers this weekend. They had a big game Sunday against Norfolk State that will not happen. But let's go straight to the interview with Loyola head coach Drew Valentine. We are pleased to be joined by Loyola Chicago head coach Drew Valentine. Drew, thank you so much for doing this. Obviously, some news broke today, some not positive news. Cluster of positive tests on the COVID side for you guys. First of all, hope everything is okay. Can you kind of talk us through what that process was like today? I'm sure there's a ton of scrambling on your side, and where do you go from here?
Yeah, obviously, it's not the news that we wanted as a program. I mean, you feel for the guys. You want everybody to be safe. You want your staff to be safe. You want your families to be safe. And so it's not the best news, but in this profession, you got to learn how to deal with adversity and just deal with whatever comes your way, because it's it's a new thing that comes your way every day. But basically, a couple guys weren't feeling good earlier this week, and a couple guys were symptomatic, and then that led to the whole team being tested. And then we've had a couple more guys that are asymptomatic that have popped up as positive. So that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, obviously frustrating. Hopefully you guys can get healthy and back on the court, because it's been a fun start to the season, a fun start for your first year as a head coach. I'll ask you first about, the dynamic for you as the youngest head coach in Division I, dealing with maybe like the oldest team in Division I. I know you're not number one, but you're close.
Hey, I actually saw earlier today, they had a graphic up. ESPN did Bonnie's is the oldest team in Division I.
So you guys aren't the oldest one, but you're close.
Right.
What is that dynamic like between you and the players?
Yeah, it's awesome. Very lucky, very fortunate. I was joking with Tate Hall this week. He had his 24th birthday this week. And I said, man, you're closer in age with me than Ben Schweiger and T.Y. Johnson, some of the freshmen we got on our team. But it's been great. I've been able to build such a great relationship, rapport with those guys, through their time here, through their recruitment, through their time here. And so they're not really getting a new side of me. It's just I'm in a new role. I'm still holding guys accountable. I'm still coaching hard. Kevin, you come to the games and see, we're grinding, we're working hard. You've been to practice. You see the intensity that we're playing with. It's just we have an understanding and trust for one another. We speak the same language on the court. They have a belief in the way that we do things here. And so I'm just trying to carry that on and try to maintain and also elevate, what we've been able to do here and help them elevate their games and help them feel confident that they're growing and developing as well.
Drew, you talk about relationships, and one guy I know you have a very strong relationship with is Lucas Williamson. You came in your first year at Loyola, his freshman year, his class's freshman year, and some news that shocked me as, you announced that you were the head coach at Loyola going forward was that you were going to return 4 guys who graduated and could have left the program. That's unheard of, especially in COVID times. What went into that? And I mean, is it just simple as relationships that you've built with those guys?
Yeah, I think, that all 4 of those guys, they have a strong sense of pride in Loyola basketball. They have a strong belief in it. They believe in our culture. They believe in our style of play. They believe that they can grow and develop here. And so when the opportunity came up, last year, with Coach Moser, we were trying to figure out all right, are we going to address the COVID year during the year? Do we want to just and we were just man, we'll figure it out once the season is over with. And then, it just so happened that, things got moving quickly. And so a couple guys had quick decisions. Tate Hall, Keith Clements, Ahir Ugwak was in the middle. And then Lucas kind of took a little bit longer to decide. But it really just came down to, like you said, the trust, the belief, not only in this place, but our style of play, if they could grow and develop and become better players. And I think, they're, all having great years. I think Keith, he's been a little dinged up this year. But like Tate Hall, he's back to shooting, almost 45% from 3. Ahir's improved, and I think Lucas has improved. So I think we're developing them and helping them get better, but they're also providing so much stability and great leadership out there on the floor.
You guys are playing faster this year. You're taking a lot more threes. You're attacking in early offense. This is not, this. If you watched Loyola basketball last year and you watched this year, you would say this is a different team. Obviously, some of the same principles in place. But what went into the decision making process for you to switch up some of the stuff you guys do, particularly on the offensive end, from what you did last year? Obviously, Krutwig not being there is huge, but you guys have changed a lot with how you operate. Can you speak to that?
No Cameron Krutwig. Simple as that. I think we've had really good guards, Lucas, Braden, Keith Clemens, Marquise Kennedy. Damn, Marquise. But, when you got an All-American, man, it's when you got an all NBA player, you've got an NBA all-star, like you're going to play through that guy. And, that's, Krutwig, he was a point center, and it took him a little longer to get down the floor to get him the ball so that he could do what he would do. And so I think that's basically what it comes down to is, we're playing, we're running some different actions. We've always kind of done that with coach. Like, when we came in, before, Krutwig, they were doing more ball screens, kind of like what we're doing more now with Krutwig. We turned into more like handoffs and giving him the ball more. And so I think we're still doing that. We're still using Jacob Hudson and Chris Knight and Tom Welch in that way, but we're playing more through Braden Norris. We're playing more through Lucas Williamson. We're playing more through Ryan Schwieger. I think those guys have all gotten better as ball handlers and passers and facilitators, and they can, shoot it and drive it and pass it better. So the combination of no Krutwig and the guys that we had on the team improvement, plus the addition, I think, of Ryan Schwieger, is kind of why we're playing a little bit different.
Drew, you know what it takes to build a resume and to win in March. We've seen it happen before. You guys have played 5 games against major conference opponents this year, 3-2 in those games right now. You had Michigan State on the ropes in the Bahamas. Where do you view this team at, and how do you gauge where they're at nationally on that scale?
I think we've been really competitive. I mean, from a, Ken Pom and net perspective, when you're using just not the eye test, when you're using the analytics of, efficiency numbers and tempo and block rate, steal rate. I mean, you guys are basketball guys. You guys do the Ken Pom deal. But the only 2 teams that we lost to are in the top 13 in the country. And we lost those games by a combined 11 points. And so when you look at that, when you factor all that in, I think we can compete with anybody in the country. Now, am I saying that we're the best team in the country? No. What I'm saying is I think we've shown that we can compete and be on the floor with those teams and belong with those teams. And our guys believe it. And I think that's why we've been able to perform at that high of a level against that grade of competition.
All right, we're going to leave you with a fun one. True or false? Your staff has the best sneakers in college basketball.
It's not even close. And I will tell you this, okay? It's not close because, there's some schools around the country that are just handed, that are just, here you go. You wear this, you do this. We don't have PEs. We don't have a Jordan deal. I don't have a Nike Dunk deal, okay? We go out and we dress ourselves. And so I think the sauce is just, it's out there and it's looking good, and we're going to keep rolling with it because that's what we want to do, and that's our brand now.
Yeah, I think it speaks for itself. And shout out to whoever's running the Loyola Chicago basketball social media. I mean, they make it very clear that you cannot be touched when it comes to drip. So kudos to you for that. I'm enjoying watching you guys this year. Happy holidays to you and the family, Drew. We got to see you soon.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, that was Loyola head coach Drew Valentine. Very thankful for him spending some time with us. We got about 5 minutes or less left on After Dark. I want to take you through a rapid fire game. You got 10 seconds to convince me. I'm going to give you the line for a matchup of this weekend's games, and I want you to tell me which side you are taking. We're going to go with Sweeney first, then we'll alternate and go to Carter back and forth. Sweeney, Butler, Purdue, Crossroads Classic, Purdue minus 15.5. Who are you taking?
15.5 is a lot of points on a neutral court in Indianapolis. I will take Butler to cover, Purdue to win comfortably.
You got a reason why or no? Because that was not convincing, Sweeney. I'm not going to lie.
I think Butler's shot makers, particularly Harris, have started to find their flow, and I think they will make enough shots to not get blown out of the water here.
Yeah, that's an L for Kevin Sweeney. You're 0-1. Purdue minus 15.5. Lock it in, folks. Butler stinks. Carter, to you. Tennessee, Memphis. Tennessee minus 5.5. Again, a neutral site in Nashville.
Give me Tennessee 5.5. Dust off that shininess of the Memphis turd. They're not that good. They're not fooling me. Kennedy
Chandler, big game.
Kennedy Chandler, better than Colin Gillespie, big game.
All right, people are going to accuse me of bias, but I'm going to give you a point. 1-0 Carter Elliott. I'm in on Tennessee minus 5.5. Number 3, Gonzaga, Texas Tech, another neutral site. Gonzaga minus 8. Who you taking, Sweeney?
Gonzaga struggles with big athletes, and Texas Tech has a lot of those big athletes. They will cover in this game. Gonzaga will win, but I think Texas Tech's defense will cause a lot of problems.
Okay, I never loved the they will cover but win strategy. I just, it's like middling. I'm not with it, but I think you're right in this case. I think it's a good matchup for Texas Tech. We'll give Sweeney a point. It's 1-1 on the board. Carter, back to you. Marquette at Xavier, a home game for Xavier. And I love that you get this one because you'll pronounce it Xavier. Xavier minus 10.5. Who you got?
Taking Marquette to cover in this game. I am taking Marquette. This is two teams that I think are just going to literally kill each other on the court. There might be some casualties out there, but I think they're going to keep it close. It's going to be an absolute dogfight. I think this is a close game.
10.5 is a lot of points, Cart. Look, I've been weirdly on Xavier. I've been betting them all season long. I kind of feel like this could be a statement like rank us in the top 15 game for Xavier. I'm going to not give you a point on this one. You did not convince me. 1-1 halfway through, folks. This is getting fun. Sweeney, back to you. North Carolina, Kentucky, the game that neither team had much time to prepare for. Kentucky -2.
Give me North Carolina. I think their bigs are well equipped to deal with Sheboy on the inside, and until Severe Wheeler starts making jump shots, this Kentucky offense is pretty mediocre.
Oh, man, I'm torn on this one. I'm going to give you 0.5 point because I can make my own rules. I don't know which way I'm swung on. I don't think that was the most convincing argument, but I also can't in good conscience say that Kentucky's going to cover anything after that Notre Dame debacle. We'll give you 0.5 point, 1.5 points for Kevin Sweeney.
This
back
point
to Carter.
system stinks.
Back to Carter. Oklahoma State at Houston. Home game for Houston. Houston minus 9.5. What you got?
Give me Houston.
Very convincing.
With no reasoning why?
No, honestly, I think they had some good karma coming their way because they knocked over that trash can and then cleaned up the trash. So I think they deserve this, honestly. This is a karma play.
Listen, you're 100% right. Houston's going to win by 20 plus in this game. Oklahoma State been fading them all year. Houston been riding them all year. But that was the laziest attempt at convincing me ever. You get negative 0.5 point. It's 1.5 to just 0.5 point with one matchup left. Sweeney, back to you. It's Baylor at Oregon. Baylor minus 7.5.
This line feels too good to be true if you're a Baylor backer, and I'm a Baylor backer. I still think Baylor should win this game by 15 plus, so I'll take that. But something about this doesn't seem right.
The too good to be true scares me after that Alabama debacle. I'm going to hold still, Sweeney. You finished this round with 1.5 points, and the ball is in Carter Elliott's hands, wide open, with the clock running down a point. It's Southern Utah at Michigan. Michigan minus 14, Cart. This is your moment to shine. Convince me. Who are you taking in this game?
I'm taking Michigan, man. They're too talented to not beat a team. Like, come on, man. Like this, it's gut check time for the Wolverines. If you're not the biggest frauds in the Big Ten, the biggest frauds in the country, you win this game by at least 15 points. Come on. It's Southern Utah. Sorry to all the Southern Utah watchers out there, but my baby, it's Southern Utah. Win the game by 15 plus points.
And the buzzer sounds, and Carter Elliott hits the 3 for the win. I'm just
going to say there's a lot of manufactured drama here. I mean, it is.
I'm just glad that Greg decided to host, even though it wasn't his choice, because we decided that the host of this show would be the person whose team has the most losses at this point of the year, which Greg is leading by a big margin with the Michigan Wolverines losing 4 games before Christmas. Yikes.
You know what's wild, Carter, is that you would have known how we chose the hosts tonight if you would have been here for either of the interviews that we pre-recorded this afternoon. But again, look, I know work ethic's not exactly your thing. Being on camera is, though, and that's why you just won our game of Convince Me. 10 seconds. Credit to you. Sweeney, Sports Illustrated. Carter Elliott, Sleepers Media. My name is Greg Waddell, Sleepers Media as well. And a quick shout out to the Comstock Colts, my high school boys. Huge road win. Israel Patterson, 21 points on the road. Shout out to y'all. Field of 68, thank you for having us. We appreciate everybody watching. Subscribe to the Field of 68 so you don't miss any episodes of After Dark. Fellas, it was a pleasure. Enjoy the hoops.